Good morning, my friends. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can be with you forever. I'm going to be leaving my email in the description, so if you want to contact me for anything at all, feel free to do so. Today, I'm going to be talking about an important subject, I think, in the realm of spirituality or whatnot. One of them being a fetishization of occult or esoteric knowledge that a lot of people seem to be gravitated towards as they approach spirituality. And I find this very problematic for a lot of reasons. The main one being is that, especially if you've been in an environment that's secular, right? Which a lot of people have been, especially if you live in a Western society. Even if you have religious parents, so to speak, in the general sphere of the mainstream world, I guess you could call it, the aspect of religion or spiritual belief is sort of not apparent. It's very much based in the material aspect of the world. It's very much based in an atheistic point of view, or a secular point of view, rather, which is a more politically correct term, since it's not necessarily discounting the existence of the beliefs in these religions, but rather it just kind of not existing to keep things on a level of, politeness, I guess you could just say, like a polite society or a very corporate minded society in which we don't have to argue with each other over spiritual beliefs because we don't actually have a firm grasp on it ourselves. Honestly, we only have these texts from thousands of years ago that are really the strong foundation. So this has also put in a lot of distrust and misinformation from these religious institutions and from people in general. And so you see a lot of people moving towards, once they start realizing that there is some validity to spirituality, they start transitioning over to esoteric, secret knowledge, occult knowledge. What's the stuff that's hidden from people, the secret knowledge that they don't want you to know. And the real secret, I will say, from all of this stuff, especially if you're coming at it from a spiritual point of view and depending on your goal, which generally is to become a better person, a happier person, a more fulfilled person, is that you need to have a strong basis in the fundamentals and the foundation in your own life, which encompasses many aspects of things. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that concept. They kind of just want to achieve the top level of spirituality and be the spiritual master guru within 20 minutes from reading some text on the internet that's esoteric and supposed to give you enlightenment, but really it doesn't really do much for you because you have absolutely no fundamental knowledge or foundation. And this is why you see a lot of people falling into thought patterns and behavioral problems. Namely, schizophrenia is a symptom, I would say, of this kind of jumping into esoteric knowledge, which I'm also kind of have dealt with those similar symptoms at first, because I sort of wanted to have more knowledge about the universe, or try to understand the secrets of society, or whatever you want to call it. And I found anytime I hungered after that, it kind of just led me off astray and left me feeling sort of detached from my own reality, and it putting me down into thought patterns that weren't necessarily helpful, and also just complete delusional fabrications of my own mind. And once you realize that, then you can kind of take a step back and go back to the fundamentals. And when I mean the fundamentals, it's easy as like reading, the Old Testament, the first book of the Bible, or if you're a Buddhist, going back and just going through those basic mantras of the meditation practice that you're doing, and just focusing and honing in on those, essential core values that I think people have strayed away from. Even something like the 10 Commandments, a lot of people don't even really understand the point of them, or understand the conception around their creation and why they exist, and also just how it relates to your life on a daily basis, and how those principles followed through are basically your ticket to salvation, if you want to call it that. And that is basically what people tend to not really regard with much interest. They kind of just, read the 10 Commandments and like, okay, cool, yeah, like basic like human goodness, nature, and then like, worshiping God, which I don't really understand, but whatever. I'm going to go read this Franz Barden book, Initiation into Hermetics or something, some crazy shit about magic and, the esoteric knowledge and the secrets of the world and the occult and all this stuff. And they end up lost because they don't have the fundamental understanding. And everything is grown from the fundamental understanding. Even Christianity, I consider the New Testament an esoteric book. It's not something to approach without a strong foundation in the principles of, basically the 10 Commandments, which is really the only ascribable work that we can say is like written by God. That's really the only text that we can like fully assert, like, okay, like Moses went to Mount Sinai, met with God, wrote this down, and that's it pretty much. Other than that, we don't really have any actual knowledge of a completely divine inspired work of text. And it's really basic. Like, you do not need to be a master of theology to understand or read the 10 Commandments. Yet the more you sort of learn and question it and interpret it in your own life, and the more you study it in that way, the more you build that foundation that you can build, spiritual wisdom from, if you want to call it that. And this is also a generational process. This isn't something that you take into your own life as your own sovereign being. The purpose of mankind is to procreate. That's essentially this entire reality of life is that we are transitory in our existence, and to achieve our goals, we need to pass it down through the generations. And this is what the Jews did. It's entirely a family tribe from one ancestor, and how it procreated and cultivated a specific, genetic predisposition to understanding the foundations of Judaism, or the concept of God, and then branching that out to the rest of the world. And this is something that everyone should start to do if they want to be spiritual. It's not necessarily to hold it for yourself, but to hone in those fundamental key components. And then when you have kids, you pass them on to the next generation, and they build it from there. And that's really what the whole genealogy aspect of it comes from, and how we sort of progress as a society, is that it comes generationally. It's like generational wealth, if you want to call it that, but for a spiritual basis. When you cultivate a good spirit in your own existence and life, that will be passed on through the genes. And if you don't believe me, then you can look at scientific evidence. I mean, these are what atheists believe in. Not believe in, it's the fact of what they see, which is that religious thought, belief in God, prayer, literally changes the construction of your own brain, right? There's a genetic aspect to that, where once you hone into that aspect of your brain that's, related to God and related to that fundamental teaching of, what the 10 Commandments preach, for example, then you can actually cultivate that and build it generationally, and then your ancestors will have it as well. And this is built in over thousands of years. So you need to do that in order to actually attain spiritual progress, so to speak, is you cultivate it in this life and then pass it on to your children. And that's building a foundation. And then after you build the foundation, you can go after the esoteric knowledge, which really is kind of ornamentary in reality. It doesn't actually affect things in as deep and effectual a way as you think it does. You might be able to attain things physically, materially, but you will learn that they are very short-lived, and attaining things in this material plane is kind of pointless altogether. So realistically, go back to the fundamentals of what you're trying to learn and master those as much as possible. And this extends to pretty much everything in life, whether it's music, whether it's painting, whether it's being a plumber. If you learn the fundamentals of anything, you can build a strong foundation and become a master because you've done that work. And that's really what the secret is to, spiritual power, or whatever you want to call it. It's really just getting down to the basics and not really focusing on the esoteric stuff. And to develop more of a hunger, if you have a hunger to chase after esoteric and secret knowledge, turn that hunger into a different direction, into rather mastering fundamentals of things and constantly going over, if you're studying a text, a spiritual text, that's a very simplistic fundamental work, and you study that to your best ability and you do it to, extensively, basically, you will find you will build that foundation and you will be able to build things off of. I think I'm kind of repeating myself here a little bit, but that's basically what it all comes down to. That's what the secret is. And unfortunately, this takes a lot of time. It's pretty boring. It's pretty rudimentary. It requires a lot of self-discipline and also just a lot of, critical thinking skills, which I don't think people want, that people will often just go towards something cool and esoteric, and it becomes basically like candy, spiritual candy. It just tastes good, but it doesn't actually provide you any spiritual nourishment or spiritual resolve. It kind of just like, ooh, this is spiritual, ooh, like the occult, ooh, look, some symbol is in some corporate logo, some occult symbol, ooh. It's like, it's meaningless. Like, why even focus on that kind of stuff? And I see a lot of people follow these like occult Instagram and Twitter accounts, and they just promote the same boring esoteric knowledge and secret knowledge of secret symbols and secret signal, whatever the fuck they're called. And at the end of the day, the foundation is really what's key, the fundamental understanding of things. And then you can even, once you build that, you can go anywhere you want, right? You can go into any kind of mentality or mode and ideology, and you'll still be able to hold and bring yourself back to that fundamental plateau you've built yourself to. Because the reason you build that plateau is so that when you do go off and out there and read all these weird esoteric texts that might be true or might be false, conspiracy theories, whatnot, you're always going to be tethered back to home base, to the fundamentals, to understanding the basics of things. And, a lot of people don't have that. They don't have a foundation. They just kind of go up there. Like I said, with Christianity, you see a lot of Christian nutcases out there that, because they're reading the New Testament, they're reading the book of Revelations, which really is a very, very esoteric text when you read it. And when I say esoteric, it means that if you do not have a strong foundation, you can go insane reading this kind of stuff. And reading the teachings of Jesus, you can go insane without having a strong foundation. Because what his teachings were based around the Torah and the Jewish religion that was cultivated over thousands of years. And then he takes that and builds something on top of it. And what the Christians are doing is kind of like cutting off the foundation and just focusing on the top portion of it, right? It's like taking a flower growing from the ground and cutting it off and putting it in a vase with water. Yeah, it'll live for a few days and then it'll wilt and die. And, it's not the proper way to go about these things, because everything's built off of a foundation. And science is doing the same thing. Atheism is trying to just cut off the entirety of religion, thinking that it can just focus on this enlightenment aspect without realizing the enlightenment, the acceleration of cognitive intelligence was due to the fact that people had been cultivating this spiritual foundation through religion for thousands of years. And then through that, they managed to develop their brains to a point where they were very intellectually superior, but that also made them realize it's like, oh, well, this is bullshit. Oh, I'm so smart. What do I need religion now for? I'm a genius. And then you see these people also, start to go insane at some point in their lives, or they become very distorted in a lot of ways. But then there's also people, very, very traditional conservative Jews who want to go straight down to the text and right back to basics all the time, and they don't have any room to grow. It's like there's like this repression feel of only focusing on the strict fundamentals, and like it becomes like this congested mass of shit, which is also not good. You should have room to grow from the foundation. That's the whole point of having a foundation, is so you can grow upwards. If you're repressing yourself from growing upwards, then the whole point of your foundation is meaningless. It's like building a skyscraper and you build a foundation, but then you stop building the skyscraper. You just leave this big fucking hole in the ground. Well, that's not accomplishing anything, is it? It's just this big hole in the ground with absolutely nothing. It's not impacting the world. It's not, no one can see it. No one has any care for it. It just exists there. But yeah, it's a strong foundation, but it's a foundation for what? What are you building on top of that? That's the real aspect of, you know, human history, is how are we building up from this foundation? And when you want to build something, you need a foundation, and then you actually need to build something. So all these fundamentalists, which exist in Christianity and Judaism and Islam and Buddhism everywhere around the fucking world, all of them are so focused on repressing the ability to grow upwards by focusing only on the fundamentals and only on the foundation, and they have no room to actually utilize it to any functional degree, and it just becomes stagnant and repressed and kind of ancient and old in their thinking. It's not progressive in the context of it, you know, moving humanity forward, or the ultimate destination where we go to, which is the heavens, which is, you know, becoming one with God, if you want to get into that aspect of things. So I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Peace.